Hi everyone, I am Izzy. I am going to be going through the journey through the respiratory system. There are a number of functions with the respiratory system, including gas exchange, which is the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between blood and air, communication, which facilitates speech and other vocalizations, allowing for speech, and olfaction, which is a smell, and is the ability to detect airborne chemicals and odors. And pH regulation, which is able to control the carbon dioxide levels in blood. We're going to be starting from the nasal cavity to the pharynx, the larynx, the trachea, the bronchioles. We have the lung here as well, and the alveoli as too. Here we have the nose and nasal cavity. The nose functions to warm, cleanse, and humidify the air. It also detects odors and amplifies the voice by acting as a resonance chamber. The nose also provides protection. Within the nose, we can find a number of structures. We have the nostrils here, or nares, which is the opening into the nose. The facial portion of the nose is formed by the nasal bone and hyaline cartilage. The internal chambers of the nose are called the nasal cavity. This space is divided into the nasal septum. It's that area here. The nasal cavity contains nasal conchae. These are tissues, folds containing blood vessels that warm incoming air and mucus that moistens the air. Each nasal conchae is separated by a nasal meatus. These are passageways for air. The nasal cavity is lined with mucous membranes that contain pseudostratified columnar, epithelium, and cilium. So here we have the superior, middle, and inferior nasal conchae. And then we have the meatuses here, which is in between them, which is superior, middle, and inferior. From the nasal cavity, air moves to the pharynx, a muscular funnel that connects the nasal cavity to the larynx. The functions are carrying air between the nasal cavity and the larynx, and it also contains tonsils that functions in immunity to provide protection. There are 3 portions of the pharynx. So the first one is the nasal pharynx, which is this area right here. The nasal pharynx is similar to the nasal cavity. It's lined with ciliated pseudostratified columnar epithelium, since it's a passageway for air. Then we have the oropharynx. So it's this green part right here, which is lined with stratified squamous epithelium. It's thicker and can handle abrasion. It is a passageway for air and food. Then we have the larynx here. So that is lined with stratified squamous epithelium, and it is a passageway for air and food. Next we have is the larynx. Here we have a close-up of the larynx. So the larynx functions in carrying air between the pharynx and trachea. Additional functions of the larynx include sound protection and preventing food from entering into the trachea. The airway surrounded by the larynx is referred as the glottis. The larynx contains vestibular folds, vocal cords, and several cartilages. So the vestibular folds here of the larynx are muscles that protect the airway by preventing food from entering into the trachea. The vocal cords here are muscles that produce sound. The larynx has several cartilages. There are 3 of them in particular that I'm going to discuss here. So the epiglottis here is the uppermost portion and contains elastic cartilage. This structure is similar in function to the vestibular folds that also prevents food from entering into the glottis by directing the movement of air into the glottis and ingested materials into the esophagus. Then we have the thyroid cartilage here, which is also known as the Adam's apple. It's a middle portion and looks like a shield. This structure contains hyaline cartilage and surrounds the vocal cords. The cricoid cartilage here is the bottom portion and contains hyaline cartilage. It connects the larynx to the trachea, and then the larynx is lined with ciliated pseudostratified columnar epithelium. Next we have the trachea. The trachea is a physical connection between the larynx and the bronchial tree. The trachea is a rigid tube supported by the C-shaped rings of hyaline cartilage and commonly referred to as the windpipe. The C-shaped cartilage rings help provide support to the trachea as a passageway for air to the lungs. The trachea is lined with ciliated pseudostratified columnar epithelium. The trachea bifurcates, splits into two at the distal end to become the right and left bronchi. The next set of structures is referred as the bronchial tree. It's a network of highly branched air tubes that carry into and out of deep tissues of the lungs. So there are two main bronchi, a right and a left, that goes to each lung. These are the largest of the branches that carry air into and out of the lungs. Once in the lung, the main bronchi splits again to go into each lobe of lung. So this bronchi is referred to as the lobar bronchi. So it's the upper part here. The right lung has 3 lobar bronchi, one each for the superior, middle, and inferior lobes. The left lung has 2 lobar bronchi, one to the superior and one to the inferior lobe. Once in the lobe, each lobar bronchi will branch a number of times. So these branches off of the lobar bronchi are called the segmental bronchi. So it's this part here. The main lobar and segmental bronchi are supported by hyaline cartilage. Finally, we arrive at the alveoli. So the alveoli are microscopic air sacs found on the respiratory bronchioles and at the end of alveolar ducts. There are millions of alveoli in each lung. The alveoli is the main site of gas exchange in the lungs, and it's composed of 3 types of cells: squamous, which is type 1, alveolar cells, which is type 2, alveolar cells, and alveolar macrophage, which is dust cells. Squamous alveolar cells form the simple squamous epithelium and is crucial for gas exchange as it forms the respiratory membrane along with the endothelium of the blood capillaries. The great alveolar cells produce a fatty fluid lipoprotein, which is called surfactant. Surfactant prevents the alveoli from sticking to themselves and helps it to re-expand during the inhalation. The alveolar macrophagy are white blood cells that help to clean dust and bacteria from the alveoli.